I am Dr. Pavitra Bharadwaj. I am Assistant Professor in the Department of Computer Science at Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. I hope you all are doing well and your learning is progressing steadily. So, in continuation with our previous series on e-commerce, today we will be taking the third lecture in this series on e-commerce. So, we have already discussed a few concepts, a few basic concepts related to e-commerce, and let us quickly, go back and revisit some of the major highlights that we have discussed in the first and the second lecture. So, we had seen that e-commerce basically it is the process of buying, selling or exchanging of products, services or any information over electronic systems. So, these electronic systems could be the internet or it could be any other computer network as well. So, basically when you are talking of e-commerce, it is a part of the larger domain of e-business. So, what is e-business then? E-business is a broader definition of e-commerce, where it is not just buying, selling of goods and services, but also servicing the customers, collaborating with the business partners, conducting e-learning and processing of electronic transactions. If we look at this diagram, we understand that e-commerce is a smaller section of the larger domain of e-business, and e-business basically is an pursuit to improve the business performance, right? So when any business wants to expand its horizons, right, when it wants to move from pure physical, pure brick and mortar business to maybe a brick and click or maybe pure online business. So the main purpose of the entire activity or the main purpose of the whole idea of incorporating this element of digitalization in the business sphere or in the commerce activity is to give better products, better service delivery and better user or consumer experience. So in this whole scenario, e-business and e-commerce, they fit in very well, and as we know, today's major chunk of business activity is turning towards the digital markets, towards the online markets or internet based markets, right? So if we look at what is the process of e-commerce, so e-commerce is basically it's a multi-step process, right? So there are multiple steps involved in how the e-commerce activity takes place, right? So the first thing that is required by an e-business venture, an online business portal, is to attract the customers, right? So they have to make some noise about that they exist. They have to do some active advertising, some marketing, some campaigning, so that people become aware of their existence. Once the customer is right there on their portal, on their website, on the e-commerce platform that the company is offering, then it is about interacting, about negotiation with the customer, about cataloging of the products, right? So it's very important that when the customer comes to the website, he or she is presented with the correct kind of information under the correct classification of products and services and goods that the customer requires. And then of course there is negotiation, you offer, you give them discounts and all that happens. After the customer has taken care of, the customer has seen how the products are there and what are the products, and he is finally trying to order it, then comes the step of capturing the order, right? Capturing the order means adding the product to the shopping cart and all this, and processing the whole experience of the user while he or she is buying a particular product or investing in a particular service. Then you have the payment, then you have the transaction, and then you have the delivery of the product. After the delivery happens, then you come to the customer service, how the customers' queries are responded to, how the customers questions are answered, or if any grievances are there, how are they redressed, and the tracking of order at different places, how the order has been shipped, and all these activities. So these are the basic broader points of the process of the e-commerce. Now if we look at the finer, or the individual steps, or the base, or the the unit steps which takes place in this overall process. So first thing that the customer does when he or she comes to an e-commerce platform is that they log into the website, right? So it's very easy for any of us to understand these steps, because we are interacting with these websites in our day-to-day activities today. So the customer first logs into the website and selects the items which are required and places them into the cart, into the virtual shopping cart which is available, and the order is placed by the user. So the order is processed, the shopping cart, once all products have been added, the shopping cart is ready for being processed. So then payment information is provided by the user, and different options are available. We will be discussing about all the options etc. later on in this lecture itself. And then the order is completed, it is confirmed, and this order is then sent to the warehouse of the company. So from the warehouse, it is the shipment carrier who is going to pick the correct order and ensure that the product is delivered to the specific user's address within the given time frame. That is, there is a concept of just-in-time delivery. So shipment is carried and it is delivered to the user's particular address. So these were the broader steps, which are involved in a customer's engagement with an e-commerce portal. What are the steps which happen when a customer comes to the e-commerce portal? But what happens at the back end? That is, when a person wants to launch an online business, what happens then? So there are multiple steps, there are multiple phases in this process. It's a continuous process. As you can see in the diagram, this is a cyclical process which has been shown. So the last step again goes and leads to the first step in the diagram. So you can see here that there are multiple steps and multiple phases of which are required when an online business venture or an online business enterprise is going to be set up. So the first phase, as you can see, is planning and strategizing, followed by infrastructure resource acquisition phase. Then comes the website designing phase. Then is the marketing and advertising phase. Then we have the fulfillment phase, followed by the maintenance and enhancement and enrichment of the website, and finally, last but definitely not the least, is the feedback and customer support area. So in this part of the lecture, we are going to talk about all these different phases and what are the activities, what are the key business areas on which the activities are centered and focused around when you are talking about each of these phases in the process of online business development. So the first process or the first phase of the business launch activity is the planning and strategizing phase. So as we all know that planning and strategizing is the key to any successful business. If your business lacks a strategy, if your business lacks a foresight, then your business is there are serious questions to the success of your business. So strategizing means preparing a long-term plan for your business, and planning will definitely mean on a relatively medium and short term activities which the business intends to do. So when you are planning, there are several key questions which you need to answer to yourself as a business, as an e-enterprise, as an e-entrepreneur, or as a person who is trying to establish an e-business. So he or she has to answer certain key questions before the entire process starts. Right, so this is the most vital of all the phases, as I think, because all the success and failure of all other phases depends on how well and how realistic planning has been done. Only then, when the plan is solid, you can have a solid implementation strategy, and then you can definitely look forward for better results. So first and the foremost question is, who are you selling to? Who are your prospective customers? For whom is the whole activity designed? So as we know that, there are segments of customers in the market. So before any business is set up, a comprehensive study of the market is done to identify the potential customers. Customers could be classified, or consumers could be classified based on several characteristics. For example, and the age of the customers, whether you want to cater to very small children, or to young, or to the youth, or to the older generations, or you can have it based on gender, whether you want to cater to both, to all genders or to a specific gender, or you want to cater to, depending on professions, what type of customer base you are trying to hit is one very important question. Next thing which comes to mind is, what are you going to sell? What is the basic product that you are going to sell, right? Product means whether you are going to have the product manufactured yourself, you are yourself into developing the product, you are yourself into creating the product and selling it, or you are going to procure the product and then you are going to sell it back to someone else. So what is going to be the product area, whether you will work on, what segment of products you want to work on, that is next thing. Then what is your market size? So when you know that I have to sell a certain product to a certain consumer, then you can easily, find out, and you can do a market survey research to check whether what is the size of the market, where exactly, you lie in that market, right? And then you have to devise a pricing policy for your product, how you are going to price your product, right? So when you know that these are the people who are going to buy my product in this size, then you will take a decision on your pricing. So pricing has to be reasonable, it has to be appropriate, and it also has to be competitive, right? So definitely pricing is a very important area on which a lot of thought has to be applied before you place the product in a particular price range. Then a very important key question is competitors. Who are your competitors in the particular market segment, right? Whether your competitors are young entrepreneurs and startups, like they are still growing in their things, or your competitors are established giant companies who can who are multiple times the size of your business, how much capital do they invest. So it's very important also to know completely and to have a conscious decision of landing into competition with certain people in the market, right? So you need to see what is your competition, and then you have to plan your human resource, because this is not just going to be another business, but you also need a lot of tech support for this. You need different types of people who will work for you. So there will be all sorts of people who you will be hiring. So from from technical people to marketing people to those who can do some social media profiling for your company, and then of course the back end people who will look at the logistics, the transport, the shipping and all those things, and of course managerial capabilities. So all those human resource planning has to be done, and then you finally come to the technological planning. That is, what technology base are you going to use for creating your website? How are you going to procure that kind of support? How are you going to procure that kind of resources for setting up that kind of online activity or that kind of e-business, right? So what is going to be your technology? What is going to be your technology usage in your business? What component, how much budgeting you would do for the technological aspect? So budgeting also is a very important activity which encompasses into strategizing and planning, because you need to see how much money you can spend on market research, or on human resource, or on technology procurement, or on different kinds of activities. So budgeting will also be a key determinant while you are preparing your business strategy or you are planning for your your business enterprise. So next phase, after you have planned and you have created a strategy in mind, you have put things, you have found out answers to all the relevant questions, you come to the phase 2, that is infrastructure and resource procurement. right? So resource procurement and infrastructure, basically in this case, because you know your website is your shop now, right? So all your infrastructure basically has to be, most of it has to be technological components, right? So if you talk about technological components of, you know, any e-commerce venture, so you can classify them under three main heads, right? So you have the hardware components, you have the software components, and then you have a very interesting segment of components which we call as the middleware. So hardware, software and middleware, these are the three technological components of any e-commerce website. So when we talk about hardware, so we all understand what is hardware. Hardware are the tangible parts, the physical parts of any computers, right? So these are all the devices, whether it is the input devices, output, memory, you know, all this comes under your processors, all this comes under your hardware. So the computing devices per se that you are going to use in your you know, e-commerce setup, they will form a part of the hardware. Then of course you need a very high speed internet connectivity, because this is going to run on the internet. So that is the basic requirement without which you cannot do. So these are the two main categories in which, you know, we divide the hardware. One is the devices and the other is a high speed internet connectivity. The other two components we keep on discussing. So first and foremost, we need to understand what exactly is internet here, right? When we are talking about e-business, internet based business, we need to understand, we need to have some clarity on how the internet functions, what is the basis on which, you know, our website is going to function. So what is internet basically? Internet is a, you know, worldwide network of computer networks, right? It's a network which is growing hourly basis, and it is involving governments, it involves communities, it involves individuals. So it's a huge network of networks which has got billions of devices which are connected to each other, which are communicating to each other, right? So internet is basically a very powerful network of networks of different types of computers, right? So if you look at how the internet is structured, so you can see here in this diagram, you know, that there are multiple local networks. These are the small local networks which combine to form regional networks. And then, you know, there is a backbone, there is an internet backbone which we call as, so all these regional networks, they connect to each other with the help of this backbone. Okay, so this you can consider like, you know, an optical fiber cable or something like that, which is connecting all the regional networks, right? So that is why we are using the word local network. Now when we are saying the local network, you know, it could be a network of computers, of mobile phones, of other internet based devices which are being used. Your GPS enabled cars also a part of these networks. So all these become a part of this particular network. When you talk about the main features of the internet, one of the key features which we, you know, often confuse is called the World Wide Web, right? So then there is email, news. Okay, so what is the World Wide Web? So this World Wide Web and internet, they are mostly used, you know, in synonymal terms, right? They are considered as one and the same, which is not true actually. The internet, you know, it's a large network, right, which provides multiple services to the users. So all these which are listed here, email, news, telnet, FTP, these are all services which are provided by the internet, and World Wide Web is also one of the services which is provided by the internet, right? So World Wide Web is a connection of web pages, right, which are connected through a network which is called the internet, right? Then you have other things in this also, of course, email and news groups we all know. What is telnet? Now telnet is another name which is used for remote login, right? Remote login means that a person can be sitting anywhere but can access any computer through the internet. By knowing the user ID, password of the computer, you can log into any computer remotely, right? So you can access the files and the programs on that computer depending on what permissions you have. like you are actually physically using that computer in the physical space. So that is called telnet. Then you have the FTP, the file transfer protocol, which is basically used when you are downloading or uploading any content over the network. So when you are downloading or you are uploading, you are using the FTP or the file transfer protocol service of the internet. And then you have, of course, the chat services, that is the internet relay chat services, that is you are doing a textual dialogue, and nowadays we have also added the video conferencing protocols to this as well. So these are some of the services, but our focus when we talk about the e-commerce, we basically concerned with the World Wide Web, because we are concerned with how websites can be used or how websites can be developed so that they can provide a commercial or a business outlet to the business provider or to the company or to the enterprise in reference, right? So if you talk about, World Wide Web, we say that it is a part of the internet which supports hypertext documents. Now what is hypertext document? Hypertext is basically any text, which is used as a link to another page or to another file. Right. So when you are browsing the internet, you see so many times, there is certain text. When you click on the text, it leads you to some other page. What is that? That is actually the hypertext, or sometimes also called the hyperlink. Right. So this allows users to view and navigate different types of data. So we all know that when you are surfing on the World Wide Web or the www, you have multiple types of data which is stored on the websites, right? So there can be text, there can be images, audio, video, all kinds of data is there, and through the www you access all that information, and then there are hyperlinks which are joining these different pages. Right. So what is a web page? Basically, it is a document which is encoded with hypertext markup language, that is HTML tag. So you create a web page, the basic simplest web page is created using the HTML tag. So what is HTML basically? HTML is a tool for creating the front end of the web pages, right? So when you are developing a website, you need to create those web pages and you need to link those web pages with each other. So those web pages then form the website. So website is nothing but a collection of interrelated web pages. And what is a web page? A web page is document which is created using the HTML. So you create a web page using the HTML. Right. So HTML, it allows the designers to link content together via hyperlinks, right? So using the hyperlinks, the HTML will, the hypertext, actually what we are saying is actually now called the hyperlink. Link word means that it is linking one page to the other. Now every web page has an address which is called as the URL or the Uniform Resource Locator. Now Uniform Resource Locator will give you the unique path to any resource on a computer or on a network, right? So because we know that on a World Wide Web you are using a system of clients and servers, right? So for data exchange you are using the internet then. So how do you access a particular web page? You access it using its URL. So URL is the path or the address with which you can go to a particular web page. Thank you.